Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and welcome you all back to the next character in this long-running series of Newcomer ideas for the upcoming Smash Bros. Game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And as I left you on character number 112, on our road to 150, hopefully I can, continue it going even through this direct coming up later today. I left you with Blaze Fielding from the Streets of Rage franchise, and I mentioned with character number 113, I'm going to be tackling an arcade classic, a gaming iconic classic series and a set of characters, and that's Bub and Bob from Bubble Bobble, from the Bubble Bobble franchise. And for those of you who have played it, it's been around for the longest time. It's been around since the 80s. It's been around since the arcade. It was on the NES, and almost every system since then has had some form of Bubble Bobble or a spin-off series from it. It is an iconic arcade classic series from Taito, and that's why I want to talk about it. And I want to talk about why I feel it could make sense as character inclusions in the new Smash Bros. Game. As third-party characters. Iconic, classic, arcade gaming third-party characters. And just like always, 3 separate categories. Why does the character make sense? Or characters, because this is talking about Bub and Bob. So it's just like my Billy and Jimmy Lee, the Contra guys. Various characters that have dual costumes, double, 2 characters in one Elf Olimar situations. Bub and Bob, why do they make sense? Moveset ideas and percentage chance, I can see them actually getting in the game. Now let's get started with why does it make sense? Like I basically just mentioned earlier in the video, it is a classic game series. It is a classic series from Taito. The series has been around as long as pretty much a large chunk of Nintendo franchises that are in Smash Bros. More so than some of the classic ones. It's been around as long as Mario, as long as The Legend of Zelda, if not longer than some of these series. It's been around. It is a classic series and had numerous games since this came out. There was an NES version which was included on the NES Classic, and if Nintendo decided to deem that game popular enough and iconic enough on the NES to put it in one of 30 games on the NES Classic Edition, the series must mean something to them, and Taito must mean something to them to put that much, effort and push to put their game, their NES game version of Bubble Bobble into the NES Classic. And the series is an iconic series. It's been around a long time, not just on Nintendo, but everywhere else. There's about 30 some odd games since the first Bubble Bobble game came out in the arcade and on the NES. And it's not just a Bubble Bobble franchise. Bust a Move is a spin-off. If you've ever played a Bust a Move game, they've come from... It's a spin-off puzzle game, but still at the same time, it's from Taito. It spins off and has characters like Bub and Bob in it. The Pop and Pop, and then there's Super Bubble, the Super Bubble Bubble, Poppin'. Let me see, I have this written here. Pop and Pop, Bust a Move, Super Bubble Bobble. A lot of different franchises come from this. Like there's various versions of Bubble Bobble on Nintendo systems, on the PlayStation, everywhere else. It's not just a Nintendo franchise. It's a gaming icon all over the place. The Bust a Move franchise and the Pop and Pop franchises are spin-offs of it. It's been around and it has popularity and has an iconic, name brand recognition. I'm sure you could show people these characters and they probably would more than likely recognize them. Maybe at least on the same level almost as like a Mario or Link and everything. It's there. Like, I'm sure they're easily recognizable characters from a long-running series, iconic series that has close connections to Nintendo that they deemed popular enough and iconic enough to include one of their games on the NES Classic Edition. Yeah, I think Bub and Bob would make perfect sense, and Bubble Bobble would be a good classic arcade franchise to include in Smash Brothers. Moveset ideas. Now, I had to do a little bit of research here because I've played a couple of the Bubble Bobble games, especially the original. And you'd say, oh, since it's a classic arcade game, what are you going to do? What are they going to do? Their moveset would be limited. And you can take a limited concept and make it into something bigger. Like with Pac-Man. Pac-Man started off in the arcades. I know there's obviously Pac-Man World and all these different, Pac-Man side games and representing other Namco classic arcade games with his taunts and everything. Yes, Pac-Man's a little bit different because he's evolved. His franchise has evolved into something more than just the arcade games. But in Bubble Bobble hasn't really necessarily done that except for stuff like Bust a Move. But like I actually did a little bit of research. There's enough content. If you have just a little bit of enough content, you can make a Smash move out of it. And I have to make their moveset mostly based around bubbles. So that's where it's mostly going to come from. But the Smash attacks are very simple. They don't really do this necessarily in the games, but since they're little like dragon, mystical dragon, little chibi cutesy little dragons, they have to have some sort of like, dragon-esque abilities. They have claws. I'm going to assume maybe they can claw swipe their opponents, and they can like do little kicks with their little stubby legs and kick. And then they could also probably headbutt and just ram their heads into their opponents too and stuff like that. Like, that'd be kind of cool, and I think that would at least give them some sort of smash ability. Like, they kind of do that sort of when you put the enemies into, like, on the screen in arcade games in Bubble Bobble. If you ever play Bubble Bobble, you have to blow the opponents into bubbles, and then you have to knock them to eliminate them and take them out of the screen. So they do technically do headbutts and jumping on people and kicking and stuff like that. So it's just kind of modifying that into a Smash moveset. So I definitely say the Smash attacks are claw swipes, doing headbutts, ramming the head, doing tackle type maneuvers, and kicking. I think it's kind of cool and it works for them. And they're dragons, so they should be able to have some physical combat anyway. So yeah, there you go with that. The special attacks are all about bubbles. Now this is where the main aspect of the game comes in. There's obviously blowing bubbles, and you can also do a super bubble if you charge it, and there's a giant bubble fully charged. So it's basically if you just press the standard B special button, you just blow a bubble out. If you charge it medium range, you'll get a super bubble, which will be a bigger bubble, will cause a little more damage. If you fully charge it, there's a giant bubble, which will cause a massive amount of damage, at least for what it is. And you can catch opponents in bubbles. Now, a standard bubble and a super bubble, not so much, but if you get a giant bubble and you shoot at opponents, you can capture your opponent in a bubble, and then you could jump and attack them and cause a little bit more damage. Maybe that would be their special ability. If you cause an opponent to get into a bubble, if you put an enemy into a bubble and then you attack them, you can do a little bit more damage than standard attack. Because you can basically jump into them. It's not just attacking them physically. You can jump and bump into the bubble and cause damage on them too. Because that's basically mostly what they do in the actual games. And then there's also a rolling bubble, which bounces off a wall. So that's like your more like not specific bubble, like not like super like controllable bubble. You shoot it and it hits a wall. And it's like this. Boop, 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 boop. There you go. And maybe you can charge that as well. There's also a thunder bubble, which will electrocute your opponents as well. So the special attacks are all mostly based off bubbles, but you can do some variations on there. I noticed that I haven't played the games enough to know about the rolling bubble and the thunder bubble. So there's that. So there's a standard bubble you could charge to super bubble or giant bubble. If you charge to a giant bubble, you catch your opponents into the bubble and you can attack them for more damage. You could do a thunder bubble to electrocute them and stun them, or you could do a rolling bubble which bounces off the walls. There you go. For the final Smash, I had to do something original, and I wanted to still make it focus on bubbles. So this is where it's going to be called the Mega Bubble. It's not cutscene based. It's not anything. It's just they blow the bubble. You get the Smash Ball, you hit the Smash Ball, and then like Bub or Bob, whoever you're playing as, just blows like, and the bubble just like and engulfs the stage. Any opponents getting caught in it will get thrown into the bubble. They'll get pulled into the bubble because it expands. They have to try to run away, but you have a little bit of distance, maybe off a certain size of stages. Unless you're playing on a stage that screws you over and you have no room to get away, unless you die, unless you cause yourself to get a KO, you have to try to outrun it, and it maybe fills up about 75% of the stage. You get thrown into it, and it's like, boom, and the bubble just pops and sends you flying off the stage. If you have a high enough amount of damage, obviously you'll be KO'd. So there you go. I thought that was kind of cool because it's original, but it goes off the idea of them doing the giant bubble and super bubble, like more powerful bubbles. How about we extend that one part further and just make a Mega Bubble for the final Smash? There you go. And then as now for percentage, they're there. They're possible. Here's the thing though. I would love to see them actually. It's kind of a cool iconic character. I don't have as much affiliation, iconic, nostalgia for the franchise as a lot of you gamers out there probably do. But I do think they're iconic enough to the gaming industry and iconic enough on Nintendo that they should deserve it. And then making a moveset about bubbles and the moves I just mentioned kind of sounds so original and unique that Sakurai would probably gravitate to and be like, yes, I'm going to do that because it's original and different. But I'm going to give them a 20% because it's there. They have a chance. It is possible. But there's other third parties, even classic arcade third parties, from Namco or from whoever the heck else, Midway and whatnot, that probably deserve a little more than them, even though they're probably some of the most iconic classic arcade characters alongside the likes of Billy and Jimmy Lee, and Pac-Man, and Mario, and all those classic 80s arcade games like Galaga and whatnot, and Centipede. it's there. It's just, I don't know if Sakurai would be willing to put them in. Maybe an assist trophy would probably be better suited for them, but I think they fit enough for a moveset. But there's other third parties, classic arcade retros, or even newer third parties now that I feel like Sakurai would rather represent them more so than going and picking like them, I guess. But they're higher up than some third parties as well. So it's like middle ground. 20% is fairly low, but it's not super low. It's not like 10%, 5%, 0%. I think it's still there. I think it's still a chance there. And Nintendo obviously sees some importance in the game because it was one of the games they chose for their NES Classic Edition. So maybe that might transfer over. That's why I'm putting it about 20%. It is an iconic franchise that Nintendo seems to still care about, and it is closely tied to them. I could see it, but it depends on if Sakurai wants to go for it or not, and I really don't know if he really want to. But it's cool anyway, so I'm just going to go with it, say 20%. Not too high, not too low, but it's there. That's it for Bub and Bob from Bubble Bobble. Hope you guys like this video. Put in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys like? Have you ever played a Bubble Bobble game? Have you ever played the likes of Bust a Move or something too? Like these characters, I'm sure you've come across these characters before. They've been around long enough. I'm sure you know of them. Would you like to see them represent Smash Bros? Because I really kind of think I would love to see them. I don't even have that much of like a nostalgia for them as a lot of other gamers out there do. But I think it's a cool representation of gaming history, and we'd like to see them. With my moveset makes sense, focusing on claw swipes and bubbles and charging bubbles, thunder bubbles, and bouncing bubbles. And Mega Bubbles, 20% too high, too low. Just discuss it down there and let's have fun and keep this series going even past today's direct later on today. And hope that I can continue doing this before the game comes out and maybe just refer to future characters as possibly for DLC. So there you go. But yeah, that's it for Bub and Bob. Put in the comments what you guys think. Discuss it there. My name is Newcomer. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day. And see you all later when we do character number 114, when I jump back into the world of Xenoblade. I've already talked about the likes of Elma, Rex Pyra, and Cross. I'm going to talk about another Xenoblade Chronicles 2 character, another major party member that's not, Rex Pyra, the main characters, and it's going to be Nia with Dromark. So there you all later. See you all in that video. Bye.